This is Adrienne Herrera-Juarez. You're listening to Library Leadership Podcast, where we talk about libraries and leadership and speak with guests who share their ideas, innovations, and strategic insights in the profession. Have you ever had the need in your library to assist families after periods of trauma? On this show, I speak with Megan Shadlick, creator of the Healing Library. Her organization creates resources for libraries to help trauma, recognizing that families can build their own journey of healing with quality experiences and materials at their libraries. From dealing with the death of a loved one or a pet, to handling Alzheimer's, to coping with the myriad of emotions surrounding COVID-19, the resources that Megan shares will help libraries help families. Enjoy the show. Megan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here today, and thank you for talking with me about the Healing Library. Can you tell me all what this is and what led to its development?
Sure, no problem. The Healing Library is a project that I started in school, actually. I was attending Syracuse iSchool to obtain my MLIS, and I really wanted to contribute something back rather than just taking another internship or taking another class. I wanted to create something. So I got permission to do this crazy project with myself, obviously, as the student participant. Kirsten Cappy, who's the creator of Curious City. She creates incredible experiences for especially independently published, high-quality, diverse picture books through her Curious City website. David Moorhead, who at the time was the children's librarian at the Lewiston Public Library in Maine. And another person who my path crossed with years ago, Bonnie Thomas, who's a licensed clinical social worker. The short version of the story is that Kirsten had just created a handout for libraries to discover how they could engage with the picture book, What a Beautiful Morning by Arthur A. Levine. And I was already going down a path of non-traditional learning for this project, and I was focusing on college students. I wanted to create something to assist with burnout and to provide opportunities for mindfulness, especially thinking about finals and just all the stress of being away from home and how your life at home doesn't stop just because you're away. When I saw Kirsten's experience, I was so excited because I'd been bumping into some walls with the college experience. The school that I wanted to work with had just told me that they didn't feel like they could lend one more non-traditional item or their staff would quit. So I talked to Kirsten and I said, I have a bigger idea. What if you and I get together and we create something that any library could have access to and anybody could download for free? And of course, that's what she does. So she loved the idea. We both agreed that we needed to have a health professional involved to ensure the ethical responsibility of what we were creating and just the overall content, that it was as high quality as it could be. She asked me if I knew anybody, and immediately Bonnie popped into my mind because she's so talented, and she deals especially heavily with youth and families focusing on art and play-based therapies. So at the end of the day, what this all became are free downloads where libraries can click on the title of a PDF and download it for free, and there are instructions for them to download these kits that were created to make a family's journey of healing following a period of trauma easier to navigate and easy to personalize around their own unique needs. They were designed with the intention of being lent out by libraries. However, a family can download them, a library can download them and perform some of these activities virtually, which is what a lot of us are doing right now. And each kit contains the following items. There's a discussion guide with overall tips for how to constructively discuss this difficult topic as a family. There's an activities guide that consists of holistic art and play-based therapy activities. In addition, with the kits that libraries purchase or assemble themselves, these kits come with all of the materials that a family would need to participate in at least a few, but as many of the art and play-based therapy activities as possible. There's an acts of kindness guide, which is more proactive activities that are encouraging families to reach out into the greater community of other people who may have experienced similar trauma. There's a community helpers guide that once they've returned the kit or they've exhausted the kit's resources, it has national suggestions and opportunities for libraries to customize that locally and really highlight the organizations who they may be partnering with. Then probably the part everybody cares in this group about the most, there's a curated book selection of diverse titles, both experientially diverse, racially diverse, and we it's, for example, the death of a pet kit. There are some people who are going to have pocket pets like gerbils that pass away, and other people are going to have dogs or cats that pass away. So we wanted to really try and cover all of our bases. Along with each book, we've also created a discussion guide that provides observations and discussion prompts that families can utilize while they're sharing the books, because you can give the right book to anybody, but they might not know how to read it with a child as effectively as possible, especially when they're experiencing their own trauma. And then finally, there's a sort of single-page introduction for families to explain, here's what you have in your hands and here's how to dive in, as well as a guide for librarians to explain, here's what these kits are, here's what these kits are not, and here's some suggestions about how to create your own, how to begin lending, all that good stuff.
Sound like amazing resources, all of these things. So these are kits. They provide materials for families to help deal with trauma. Can you share with us what kinds of things are dealt with in the kits in particular and what is in them? You kind of went over that, but how does that work in these kits?
It's such a good question. I mean, trauma is such an expansive topic, and it's getting so much more attention and focus, and we're recognizing, how individual these experiences can be. And so we recognized when we started the project, we all just chimed in with as many experiences that we could think of that we would like to write about. And eventually we realized that it was still an internship. I still had to be quote unquote finished with the product in 3 months. So in 3 months, we decided that we could do 3 kits really well, and we've grown since then. But the first kit we focused on was the death of a loved one. The second was the death of a pet. And the third was Alzheimer's in your family. Since then, we were actually hired by Barefoot Books and the incredible author, Tamara Ellis Smith, to create a kit around her book, which dealt with separation and divorce. And then just a couple weeks ago, we actually released a COVID-19 kit. So we have these 5 incidents which we feel are common enough that they are occurring more frequently in people's lives, and we're slowly adding more and more topics to that.
Those sound like really good topics. So what do these kits do? I mean, when someone gets a kit, they open it up, they see all these resources. What can they expect to have happen with these kits?
I think that it's going to be unique for everyone. And one of the things that we've taken great care and responsibility and tenderness in our writing is to ensure that we are covering a bunch of bases when it comes to social emotional learning. For folks that aren't familiar, there's an incredible organization, CASEL, and they have created a framework and a language around social emotional learning that would probably be really helpful. And I can share that resource with folks later. But basically, there are 5 core competencies that they focus on: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And without being, heavy-handed or preachy, or I guess technically we don't even bring up the terms social emotional learning when we're creating these things, because we're providing families with the language, with the actions, and with the opportunity to engage with one another through conversation, through caring language and tender action, and through the greater community, whether that's their neighborhood or their family or a national organization that understands what they're going through. We really try and provide a myriad of opportunities so that they can engage in these healthy activities and build something that works for their families. A good example is one of the activities in the Death of a Pet kit is called Thinking About Heaven. And in the overall discussion guide, we go over some common things that parents did with us when we were kids, and now that we're parents, the pattern just tends to repeat itself, or you see it on TV and it works and you think, oh, I can just use that language. So a good example is heaven. A lot of families don't believe in heaven, but it's awfully comforting and easy to say, well, our cat has passed away, but they're in heaven now where everything is wonderful, so you don't have to worry about them. Or it's okay to be sad, but understand they're in heaven. And if you aren't a family who's ever discussed heaven before, that can be confusing for a child, and it can open up a whole new set of doors and questions. And it may not even be that you're the one who has mentioned heaven to them, but maybe their best friend, maybe their parents say something about that, and they come home with questions for you about what is heaven. So we talk about how to tenderly approach that subject in the discussion guide, but then we also pair it with an activity called Thinking About Heaven, where we provide a myriad of art materials, and the child could draw, if heaven is real, what does that look like for your animal? Or what would that look like if the two of you were together and heaven was on earth? Or what was a perfect day like? So really trying to provide opportunities for families that don't believe in heaven to have an experience with that concept, but also for the families that do experience heaven in their lives and in their religion to support that idea as well.
It sounds very sensitive. And as we all know, when you're in a library, almost anything can come through the door. Families are going through a lot when they come into our facilities. And so it's important that librarians have resources like this. What would you say to librarians who want to lead the way on developing social and emotional learning for their communities?
I would say check out CASEL's website, because chances are it's a lot like the maker movement, right? Like we heard about it and we all thought, oh my God, that sounds so expensive. It sounds like a lot of research. And then when you look into it, you realize, oh, I've already been doing a lot of this for, in some of our cases, decades. So I'm willing to bet that a lot of the work you've already been doing, but having the framework and language around it to communicate with your administration or your funding sources or your boards or city government, or because this was originally created for schools, to build healthy partnerships with your schools, and all of us moving forward with, whatever's going to come from the COVID-19 situation that we're in. Everybody's like, oh, summer's here. What are we going to do? But I think people are also sort of freaked out about back to school is coming. What's that going to look like? How are our kiddos' lives going to change? How are our parents' lives going to change? How are our libraries going to change when that happens? So taking a little time to do some of this reading and thinking over the course of the summer while you're participating or administering in virtual programming could be a really healthy way to sort of like try out the training wheels and talk to some of your teachers, some of those allies that you have in other community organizations, and see what they think of the idea, and partnering together, what does that look like moving forward? I think everybody's, stronger in a partnership.
Right. I think that's fantastic. And one of the things I liked that you said was about kind of adapting the kits to your family's needs, right? Everybody comes at this a little bit differently when dealing with trauma, or something comes at us in our communities like COVID. And it sounds like the kits have enough flexibility in them that you can take the essential resources and put them into your own situation. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we tried to provide as robust an experience as we could, knowing that some families will, I'm trying to think of an example from our Death of a Loved One kit. Some families will read one particular phrasing in the discussion guide and know, oh, that's not us. So they can just skip down to the next heading. Other families may eat this all up and decide that it's important for me to review this as a parent and to experience all of these activities. So really, like I said, there's no right or wrong way to approach these kits. I think the only real piece of advice we give parents, beyond some of those tips in the discussion guide about how to approach these sensitive topics with a child that's constructive and is going to give them a framework and a toolbox of healing, is that when it comes to the picture books, really give yourself a chance to read them ahead of time, because you never know what's going to be triggering. And the other hard piece of advice that we put in is about crying, and how it's so powerful for a child to see a parent have these emotions and to see a parent relating with them and feeling sad as well. And so it's okay to cry in front of your child. However, if you feel that it's going to be uncontrollable for you, or you feel you're bordering on that uncontrollable territory, to remove yourself and regain your composure, because seeing your parent out of control with sorrow or grief can have the opposite effect and be kind of scary.
Yeah, interesting. Good advice. So where can our listeners go for resources?
Our website has a lot of information on it. We are the Healing Library US, as in United States.com. And on our website, you'll get the sort of overview of what we've discussed today on that homepage. The About section has a little bit of the story of how we came about. Then, of course, everybody wants the free downloads page. If you go to the free downloads page, you just click on the title that you want, and a free PDF will automatically download to your computer. The other section that gets a lot of attention is our grant language section. We've set this up so that we break down for you how the Healing Library can assist your community in providing social emotional learning. So we really, I've written a ton of grants, as I'm sure you and your listeners have. We really broke this down so that it's basically you can copy and paste, and we also provide additional questions that you might want to consider offering up or answering in the grant somewhere to show how capable, resourceful, and ready you are for this kind of action in your community. There's also a shopping section. We've been really proud of taking our work and growing with the requests of the greater library and now school community who's been accessing our materials. And one of the things we kept hearing from rural and smaller libraries was that they love this, but they don't have the manpower to assemble these kits themselves. So where could they purchase them? And I said, well, that's not who we are. Hands up in the air, like, no, we're libraries. We do things for free. And they said, then I can't have one. And so with the grant language, we created a shop page that's slowly been built out. And now 3 of the kits are available in 3 different sizes for people to purchase. Everything from something that can be shelved with your collection to a full-size rolling duffel bag that has every single thing in it. And then there's a contact page and, of course, terms and conditions. But beyond what's available on the website, if anybody had a question for me directly, they're welcome to reach out. And it's just like the website. Our email address is thehealinglibraryus@gmail.com, and that will come to me. And truly, you can ask anything. Recently, I helped a school librarian and school counselor purchase 3 kits through the website, and I helped them with writing their grant and showing why, in their case, purchasing a kit wound up saving money as opposed to trying to create their own kits. And then if folks had questions about social emotional learning, the website is CASEL.org. That's CASEL.org. And you would click on what is SEL. And that will take you directly to those 5 core competencies and a whole bunch more information that I think your listeners will find really interesting.
Thank you. Anything else you would like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. The team and I are available to either assist with the launch of your book if you're an author or an illustrator or a publisher. If you feel that it's in line with social emotional learning, with assisting families through getting through some type of traumatic or life-changing incident, you can reach out to us at that website or at the email address. And further, we create webinars and trainings and all kinds of things. So if you feel like your staff day or library conference or administrative team would benefit from something like that, please reach out. I do everything from social emotional learning programming audits to what is the Healing Library and how can my team dive deeper.
Excellent. And will you say the website again?
Sure. thehealinglibraryus.com.
Perfect. Do you have a favorite leadership book or resource you'd like to share, Megan?
I do. So I am kind of a psychology junkie and nerd. So probably my favorite is Drive, the surprising truth about what motivates us by Daniel Pink. My absolute favorite nerdy psychology is motivational psychology. And I just think it's so fascinating. And if you look at the tests that were completed decades and decades ago about how money is not what drives people to be successful at work and to achieve things, if we can really tap into what makes one another tick as human beings, we all can just flourish. If we would only put the focus on that and attention on that instead of things like money.
Sounds good. Megan, in closing, what do libraries mean to you personally?
I'm sure like many people listening, I have one of those stories where I was kind of raised by the library. Some of my first and best memories were in the library. I was incredibly fortunate. My dad was an avid reader, as was my mom, and so we had a library in the house that I grew up in. And then as an adult, moving away from that, I did everything the opposite of libraries. I've, been a bartender, and I was a park ranger for a snowboard park in a resort, and a plumber's assistant, and I helped out on whale watch boats, finding the whales for tourists. I really just spent a long time seeking and trying to learn what my life was about and what I thought our connected life as human beings was about. And it wasn't until I answered an ad in the paper to be a children's librarian after I was a bartender, and it was a miserable experience, that I recognized that what I had been seeking was a balance. All of the very physical jobs I had didn't stimulate me intellectually, and the more intellectual jobs that I had weren't stimulating in a physical sense. And I think that libraries are one of the few places, because we are cultivating lifelong learning, where we get to dive in and use our hands and our brains at the same time. And it's all centered around the heart. And I can't imagine a more beautiful profession. So that's why I'm attracted to them. Even though, full disclosure, I had a son and I actually left my library. So now the healing library is all that I'm focusing on. I still have a passion for them.
It seems very full circle, Megan, as you give back with the Healing Library. What a nice story. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Listeners, if you would like to support this content and more like it, you can become a patron at libraryleadershippodcast.com. Thank you for your help. You've been listening to Library Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Adrienne Herrick Juarez. Our producer is Nate Vineyard. More episodes can be found at libraryleadershippodcast.com, where you can now subscribe to have new shows delivered right into your email inbox. You can also find the show on Apple iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.